another edition of Weekly Digest, a government information agency program that keeps you informed on what the administration has been doing that will create a better environment for citizens. I'm your host, Janelle Carter. Thank you for joining us. In this week's presentation for the period November 15 through 21, 2014, 2 Land Court judges sworn in, Guyana Police Force rolls out special security plan for Christmas season, and Guyana has made significant strides in sustainable forest management. 2 commissioners of title or Land Court judges were recently sworn in by Prime Minister Samuel Hinds and urged to work in the interests of the people.
Prime Minister Samuel Hinds took the opportunity to congratulate the attorneys in their new posts, noting the importance of their job. He urged them to be ready for all challenges that lie ahead. He pointed out issues they would deal with, such as land dispute, which in Guyana is a particularly challenging area.
Having persisted and persevered and taken the oath of office, and I often think that in this legal profession, one probably is taking a step into an unnatural life, or natural. I say unnatural because you've just sworn to be not affected by affection and goodwill, and you're supposed to treat an enemy no less well than you would treat your best friend. Certainly would come the pressures to vary what might be your rational judgment. So I want to wish you well, and I want to thank you for taking up the challenge. It is necessary that people take up the challenges of office in a society if it is to run well.
Both attorneys expressed gratitude and committed themselves to honor the oath they swore to and fortify the country's judicial system.
I am indeed humbled by this honor of being accepted as a Commissioner of Title and Judge of the Land Court, and I am thankful for being given this opportunity to serve my country to the best of my ability. And I would like to reiterate my commitment to ensuring that the judiciary is transparent, fair, and highly efficient.
I think it's a privilege to be sworn in today as Commissioner of Title, and I will do my best endeavouring to uphold the office and perform my duties efficiently, competently, and, as the oath said, without fear or favour.
Both attorneys boast a certificate of legal education at Hugh Wooden Law School, a bachelor's degree in law from the University of Guyana, and many years of experience in the legal field.
The Guyana Police Force has unveiled special security plans for the period November 15, 2014 to January 2015 to prevent crimes during the Christmas season when large number of shoppers throng businesses in the city.
The Christmas season brings along increased commercial activities in the city, and in this light, the Guyana Police Force will be increasing patrols. Motor vehicles and bikes along with various ranks and strategically placed manned booths and security operations are part of the security measures to ensure a safe shopping season. This traditional policing arrangement will target increased commercial activities around the city and the inevitable increase in traffic.
Annually, around this time, 15th of November to 15th of January, it is understood, like my colleague presenter said, there is an increase in vehicle and pedestrian activities at the commercial sector and its environment. Hence, similarly, the police establishment will be developed in an increased way in order to curb what is called activities that will not be warranting during the process to ensure that people feel comfortable.
Arrangements have been made to conduct special operations around the banks, hotels, and night spots, post offices, and business entities around the city by the Criminal Investigation Department, CID.
We will continue to focus on noise nuisance which is plaguing our society. We will increase patrols around our city and its environment. We will continue to conduct raids and target the Georgetown Prison, hotels, night spots, places of business, banks, and post offices.
In addition, to ensure adequate policing of the city, Georgetown will be divided into 5 sectors. Each will be supervised by a deputy superintendent or assistant superintendent, assisted by a cadet officer and an adequate number of ranks.
Despite efforts by some sections of society to stave off possible investors, many reputable names in the business world at large continue to see Guyana as a safe place for investing while contributing to the country's growing economy. Over recent weeks, investors' confidence in the local economy has become more and more evident, with businesses expanding and new businesses opening their doors for services. Unicommerce Guyana, the parent company of Quartz Guyana, opened a US $6 million distribution center at Eccles, East Bank Demerara, while in Bartica, the Guyana Bank for Trade and Industry opened a $60 million branch in that community. According to President of the Guyana Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Lance Hines, these investments speak volumes of the local economy and the direction in which it is heading.
It seems like every time we turn around at the chamber, some delegation or a large company is visiting, asking us about the possibilities of entering the market and getting a complete picture of the local business environment. Guyana has become a significant place of interest in the region. I was at the Caribbean Export 2014 colloquium in Barbados last week, and the range of inquiries continued. What is going on down there? What is the action? How can we get in? The Caribbean Export Outlook magazine in the 2014-2015 edition wonders in one of the articles if Guyana is going to become the next economic tiger, and also provides some insight as to how that can become a reality.
Hines noted, in order to keep and attract new investors, it is critical for stakeholders to work together to develop a series of initiatives that will continue to build an enabling progressive environment that will convince citizens to continue to provide significant inputs into the local economy. The GCCI head added that if all goes well for Guyana in the medium and long term, it promises growth, diversification, and modernization of the economy and should lead to more employment while at the same time reducing migration. Guyana has made significant strides in ensuring sustainable forest management, and legality are maintained in keeping with internationally accepted forest management practices.
Since Guyana adopted the European Union Forest Law Enforcement, Governance and Trade Initiative Action Plan in 2003, the EU FLEGT, the country has seen a significant decrease in deforestation. Guyana is now looking forward to the completion of the process, which is set to be finalized by September 2015. Upon the completion of the agreement between Guyana and the EU, the Voluntary Partnership Agreement, PPA, will be used as a binding agreement for the two parties.
Regarding the EU FLEGT, we want this process to be completed, and I'm advised that perhaps we would have made much more progress, but we were cautious by our EU partners to engage in more consultations, and that's why perhaps we're not moving as fast as we ought to. So I don't want the impression to be had that perhaps someone was sitting down from the government side or from the agency side, but because it was a collaboration with our EU partners, and we were advised that we should undertake more consultations. But we are on track, and our roadmap would take us to September 2015, where we'll be able to conclude, because we want it. It's necessary, not only in terms of economic sense to export our timber product, but also it will help us to sharpen our monitoring of what's taking place in the forestry sector, because we have zero tolerance for illegal logging and illegal activities within the forestry sector.
Recently, the Guyana Forestry Commission, in collaboration with a number of agencies, held a 2-day seminar that covered a broad range of topics of the VPA process. The aim of this seminar is to create an opportunity for the exchange of ideas, experiences, and research, increase knowledge and understanding of Guyana's forestry sector on forest laws and enforcement, and also share experiences in addressing governance issues in the sector.
It is common knowledge that the approach of the GFC and the government of Guyana has always been one where we are eager to share our own and also learn from the experiences of other countries. We are acutely aware of the great value that this offers through exposure to the rich, unique, and constructive perspectives that resource persons and other stakeholders can offer on current and emerging issues. Indeed, you will recall that through this very mechanism of sharing of experiences, the government of Guyana was able to develop detailed roadmaps for the completed MRVS Phase 1 process. And we have finalized the MRBS Phase 2 roadmap through the same mechanism of having a wide range of local, regional, and international stakeholders who contributed actively to these engagements.
Despite the increasing mining, Guyana has one of the lowest rates of deforestation and is well below the annual allowable cut, achieving about 35% of the annual harvest. The country's extractive industry has grown, and the partnership with Norway and other arrangements have contributed in this regard.
Stay tuned, more of the Weekly Digest after the break.
Ghana is set to achieve the goal set by the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF of universal birth registration by 2015. The General Register Office has launched an intensive campaign. It has decentralized its services to specifically cater to the needs of residents living in the interior location. Bedside registration is also done in several public hospitals. There are now 200 registration centers operating in the 10 regions. Citizens are urged to ensure that all births are registered. The modernization of the Justice Administration System, the MJAS project, has been completed through a loan from the Inter-American Development Bank. Achievements made under the project include amended and new laws, training for personnel within the sector, reduction of the severe case backlog, the refurbishing of courts, increased numbers of judicial officers and training, publication of law reports and their indices online, the establishment of a DPP office in Berbice, computerization of several connected systems, among other aspects.
Pensioners will enjoy a 50% increase in assistance, bringing it to $30,000 per annum for pensioners who are customers of the Guyana Power and Light Company Incorporated. Further, old age pension is to be increased by 5% with effect from May 1, 2014 to $13,125 monthly, targeting the 42,500 senior citizens.
You're watching the Weekly Digest. Guided by the theme Advancing Effective Municipal Financial Management and Control in 2015, 5 of the 6 municipalities presented their budget estimates to the Minister of Local Government recently.
With the exception of Georgetown, whose budget was not approved by the Mayor and City Council, the other 5 municipalities presented their 2015 budgets on November 17. Rose Hall presented a $42.8 million budget, and Regina $87.8 million, which saw an increase of over $9 million. New Amsterdam $138.9 million, with an increase of over $8 million. Corriverton presented a $75.7 million budget, and Linden $128.3 million Ghana dollars. Minister of Local Government and Regional Development Norman Whitaker expressed his disappointment over Georgetown's non-submission of its budget. It was observed that not a single municipality received 50% of the revenues budgeted for.
Bearing in mind that the prime source of revenue for you is your rates and taxes, you're talking about increasing, doing revaluation of property and increasing rates. So I say these things so that people can have a sense of understanding why sometimes I take a position that I do. That if people are paying X dollars and we are not able to collect 50% of that, what will change significantly to cause us to collect more than 50% when we take that rate to X plus? So if the rates we're supposed to collect is 100 million and we only collecting 40 million, what makes us think that if those rates go to 150 million, you're going to collect more? This is a consideration I would want us to look at. We are not pursuing actively the ratepayers who owe us. And when we don't do that, we are in effect not positioning ourselves to provide more services to the people.
The councils were urged to implement firm policies and programs which will help in the collection of revenues, and urged that they move away from the traditional way of garnering revenues and develop other legitimate sources to enhance the provision of services to the people.
The preliminary forecast for this year's rice production is that the country will register a record production of more than 627,000 tons, a significant increase over the last year's bumper crop. Rice production in 2013 recorded 535,555 tons, following the 2012 production of 422,000 tons. Jagnaran Singh, General Manager of the Guyana Rice Development Board, said only small pockets of areas in regions 5 and 6 are remaining to be harvested. The continued record production is a result of new initiatives introduced and developed by the GRDB and made available to farmers. Up to November 18, production had reached 627,000 tons.
We've seen over the last 2 years the yields are growing from 4.5. We're now about 5.2, 5.3 tons per hectare, where individually people are getting in excess of 6 tons of paddy per hectare grown. And this basically is going backwards. It's the new varieties and the technological package that was developed by the Rice Board. The Farmers Field School, Farmers Extension Program.
In October, the rice industry broke 2 records production, which touched to 600,000 ton mark and the highest quantity of export. The export volume exceeded 70,000 tons, bringing the total number of tons exported by October month end to over 400,000 tons. It is anticipated that Guyana will export over 500,000 tons of rice for 2014. This year's rice production will be way above the target projected.
The heavy rainfall which occurred on November 20 was the highest recorded ever in Georgetown, with 186 millimeters or 7.25 inches within a 24-hour period, even when compared to the 2005 flood, when there was a 166.1 millimeter of rainfall within the same period. Based on an assessment done by engineers, government will have to invest more resources in drainage infrastructure within the city and along the coast to prevent severe flooding in the future.
We have amongst the highest, as was said, in decades rainfall, 186 millimeters, some 7.7¾ inches of rain in a 24-hour period. The resultant has been extensive flooding on the low East Coast in Georgetown, the lower East Bank Demerara and the West Demerara Bank and coast, the Essequibo Islands and parts of the coast. Heavy rainfall with flooding in significant low-lying areas. We are in a neat tide period. As you are all aware or should be aware, the design drainage overall for these drainage systems that we have on the coast is for a 1.5 inches of drawdown for rainfall in any 24-hour period.
Minister of Public Works Robeson Ben, Local Government Minister Norman Whitaker, and Minister within the Ministry of Finance Juan Edgell, along with engineers, visited several sluices around Georgetown, including the Sussex Street and Princess Streets outfalls, Rhymeveld, Riverview, J.P. Santos, and Kingston.
Whilst we have this heavy continuous rainfall, this happened during the washing tide. So whilst water was coming in from the sea, you had waters coming from above also. So it's important for us to look and see what happens as the water recedes during this falling tide and what additional measures could be taken to accelerate the pace.
Despite the massive cleanup across the city under the Clean Up My Country initiative, targeted areas were still under floodwaters with significant amounts of bottles and styrofoam boxes floating.
Knowing Guyana, times like these, one of the first things we have is the political opportunists try to bring in the blame game. We've heard from the technical people. We have heard exactly that we could only drain 1.5 inches in a particular time frame. We have 7.75 inches of rainfall, and this is not a matter now for the blame game, because this is a matter for us to be able to lock shoulders together and ensure that we have minimum damage, and that we're all safe, and that our homes and our homesteads are properly protected, and that our children in particular are kept free from disease and any form of damage.
The Ministry of Public Works staff examined the drainage infrastructure in terms of pumps, cokers, and outfalls, and implemented a monitoring system to ensure that the water was being drained off. properly.
During Cabinet's statutory meeting at Office of the President on November 18, several issues of national concern were discussed. The media was subsequently briefed on Cabinet's deliberations.
At its October 18 statutory meeting, Cabinet gave its no objection to contracts for the Guyana Elections Commission, the Public Works sector, Security sector, Housing and Water sector, and the Demerara Harbour Bridge. Cabinet Secretary Dr. Roger Luncheon stated that formal invitations for talks with government were dispatched to parliamentary opposition leaders. This move is as a result of President Donald Ramotar using his constitutional powers to prorogue the National Assembly, and it was one which was fully supported by Cabinet.
At Cabinet, the sentiment extended to the actual consideration of the loss of this golden opportunity, an opportunity that was being provided by prorogation to go on to parliamentary normalcy and to have further discussion, further examination of the critical issues facing Guyana. Those to be done now as opposed to next year or after national elections or in a new parliament, an 11th parliament.
The Cabinet Secretary reiterated that the President has reached out to all stakeholders, inclusive of the parliamentary opposition, to start dialogue and effect a return to parliamentary normalcy.
And we are, the Cabinet, the President particularly, stands, as he says, ready to engage and stands in anticipation of a timely response to his invitation, perhaps even stronger, his exhortations for the parliamentary political parties, including the governing PPPC, to engage in dialogue.
Cabinet has given its approval for the appointments of ambassadors from the United Mexican States, the Republic of Bulgaria, and the Hellenic Republic of Greece. A revision of the travel restrictions imposed on persons traveling to and from West African countries due to Ebola has also been given approval by Cabinet. This follows a CARICOM ministerial meeting attended by Prime Minister Samuel Hinds.
As you may have recalled, Cabinet, as of yesterday, had in place an almost total visa and travel restriction on West African states. As of today, the restrictions would only extend to 4. And those 4 are Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Mali.
And now for perspectives with Dr. Prem Misir.
The prorogation, which is a temporary suspension of parliamentary activity in Guyana, is real and is a historical first. It is a done deal, but the view on whether or not prorogation is a good thing depends on who you are talking with. And indeed, the feelings about the suspension of parliament are strong, in that there are sections of the electorate who support and other sections of the electorate who oppose. The combined opposition AFC and APNU currently are spinning the prorogation as some kind of evil and that the president has committed an unconstitutional act. Let us be clear about the fact that the proclamation for proroguing parliament is constitutional. There is the argument now that the president, by proclaiming a prorogation, has committed an undemocratic act, even though the act is constitutional. In fact, what the AFC and APNU are saying is that Parliament represents the will of the people. And so the parliamentarians have now become politically voiceless, implying that prorogation itself is undemocratic. The Speaker of the National Assembly also shares this view. In pursuing this line of thinking, some opposed to the prorogation contend that the framers of the Constitution inserted prorogation as a constitutional provision, but they did not intend for any president to use it, for the reason that prorogation will make the elected representatives voiceless. That is a strange argument, for if a provision is clearly articulated in a constitution, a good probability exists that it will be utilized if the circumstances warrant it. Without reliable and valid evidence, how would those who promote this view know about the intentions of these founding fathers? They have not presented any evidence of the framers' intentions. Furthermore, those resisting prorogation have primarily focused on consequences, but little attention is focused on the causes of prorogation. What brought about the prorogation in the first place? In 3 Canadian cases, 2 federal and 1 provincial, the governments that prorogued parliaments were all minority governments, suggesting that minority governments may be more inclined toward invoking prorogation in order to sustain its legislative agenda and capital programs and projects. Moreover, in Westminster-style parliamentary systems, prorogation is used as a legitimate parliamentary device when a government legislative program ends, or when it wants to institute a new legislative program, or even further, if it wants to sustain its existing legislative program and to perhaps even continuing it further. The PPPC has a legislative agenda for the remaining 2 years or so of the 10th Parliament. Any ruling party, and the PPPC is no exception, will want to execute its legislative agenda as part of its nation-building mandate. And with several bills languishing now in Parliament, combined with a practically dysfunctional committee system, there is definitively parliamentary gridlock, opposed to development and democratic growth. This prorogation period, which could be 6 months or less, presents parliamentarians with an ample opportunity to disintegrate the parliamentary gridlock. And gridlock exists because people have conflicting ideological perspectives and power interests with no proclivity to compromise. For starters, conflict resolution requires meaningful interaction through parliamentarians' consciousness of their public role, their responsibility, and accountability to the people. I thank you very much.
And with those features, we have come to the end of this edition of Weekly Digest. But before we go, here's a recap of the highlights. 2 Land Court judges sworn in, Guyana Police Force rolls out special security plans for Christmas season, and Guyana has made significant strides in sustainable forest management. Please note that Weekly Digest and other government information can be found on our website, www.gina.gov.gy, or you can send us your comments and suggestions at gina.govgy@gmail.com. Join us again next week as we highlight more of the government's programs and policies that are aimed at enhancing the lives of citizens. I'm your host, Janelle Carter. Do have a safe week ahead. Goodbye.